Welcome to this edition, episode 2 of the Student Life Edvisors podcast. Once again, my name is Tré.
My name's Elaine.
And we are bringing to you today a conversation about one of the most important topics when it comes to school, paying for college.
How to do it.
When to do it.
How to figure it out. When to fill out.
How do you just make the math work? That's basically.
Yeah. It's a really difficult conversation. It's one of the reasons we have a business.
Yeah. That's
one of the reasons that we're out there is to help people get the information they need. And at this point, it just feels like it's really complicated. Not only do you have to figure out what you need to do, what's available to you,
right,
but then you also have to figure out how to make college costs work in your budget.
Yes. So that's one of the things we want to talk about today. The budget. How does it work? How do you set it up? What's a good budget? What's a bad budget when it comes to being a college student? We've got all of that coming for you today, and we're going to really just jump into it by starting off with how did we pay for college and how did we make that work? So Elaine, what was it that you did? What are your experiences with budgeting as a college student?
So to be honest with you, I wish I knew what I was getting myself into. I feel like that's one of the things I hear when I talk to students, when I talk to parents who kind of maybe wing it the first year or just kind of do things as they come up.
Yeah.
They start getting notices from schools about what they need to do. And that's the first time they're talking about it. And that's the first time they're having that conversation. Unfortunately, I feel like maybe I fell into that bucket a little bit too much. And I didn't even realize I was in that bucket until I graduated.
Yeah.
So one of the ways I paid for college was I definitely completed the Fafsa application for federal student aid. That's the free application for federal student aid. The school I went to required the CSS profile. So that helped me get federal student aid, grants, need-based loans, some state loans, as well as some institutional aid. I also got some scholarships from my high school.
Ooh, those are very nice.
And that I didn't even know was a thing until my counselor, it wasn't technically a college counselor, it was just my counselor, asked me if I had completed the application, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And I'm so glad he pulled me aside that day because that particular application actually qualified me for a lot of scholarships.
Nice.
I remember the day that we had the ceremony where they gave them out. Like, I felt like my name kept getting called, and everyone's like, "What did she do?" And I'm like, I filled out an application.
That's what I did.
And I was very happy about it. But a lot of people are like, "Whoa, did she excel in school?" And I wasn't a bad student. I just wouldn't say I was like the one, you have those kids you think about in school where you're like, we didn't have valedictorian, but you're like, they're top of class, and usually their names get called for everything, and then all of a sudden I started getting called.
Interesting.
So, yeah, and then part of the non-planning.
Okay.
Part of the non-planning aspect was college. The college I chose was relatively expensive. I got a lot of financial aid. Even my counselor in high school commented on the amount of financial aid I got. But it was not enough to cover everything, and I had to resort to not only federal student loans, but also using private student loans. So definitely used some private student loans to help pay for college, and also worked during college to help cover some of those everyday expenses. But I really felt like I was just trying to get by and figure it out, and I wish I had that conversation with my parents of, what can you really afford? What are we putting towards college? Because we just kind of were under the mentality of just get in and figure it out. And we had to figure it out every year, many sleepless nights. So that's kind of my story. And I don't think it's the best story to learn from, but I also know my story is not unique.
Yeah.
And we help a lot of people now with student loan repayment and that thing and such.
Quick question, because you mentioned how you had all of these scholarships, and yet you still went to an expensive school. So in spite of your aid, your scholarships, you still had to go into the private student loan space and get those loans to cover your schooling. I mean, what would you say to someone who maybe has some scholarships from their high school and they really the school of their dreams is maybe a school that costs more, but they maybe have the opportunity to go to another school that won't push them into so much student loan debt. Like, what would you tell them?
I'm glad you asked that, Tré. That's actually one of the biggest, because I do financial aid nights every so often, and one of the conversations I have before we jump into how to pay for college and what you need to apply for is, you don't have to be getting ready to go to school in the next few months. You can have this conversation with your parents, people at home who are going to help you pay for college. If you're on your own, you can have this with yourself, just so you have an idea of what's going on. Everyone's situation is different. But to be honest with you, set yourself a budget. I wish I had done that. I wish I went through and understood how much college costs. I kind of also feel like I started going to school at the time it really started to rise. And it just hadn't quite clicked yet. There was some chatter about it, but no one was really quite thinking about it yet.
Yeah.
And they were still under the old mentality of go to the brand name school, the dream school, and figure it out from there.
Interesting.
But now it's really about set that budget, figure out how much you can really afford to put towards college. I will never discourage anyone from applying to any school, because you never know after you complete all those applications what the school might actually give you in institutional aid.
That's a good point.
And merit aid. But be realistic about it. So if you actually apply and you and your family decide you can only put $5,000 a year towards your education just from your family savings, and that's the number you agree upon, but your dream school comes back at being $12,000 a year out of pocket, you have to go into it knowing and being realistic about what's truly affordable.
Yeah.
And you can try some tricks to work with the school to see if they'll help you cover costs. But keep in mind, that's just what you're paying 1 year. Mm-hmm. Your program could be 4 or 5 years.
It adds up.
It adds up quickly. So you just want to keep that in mind. I wish I had done that. As far as going to a cheaper school, sometimes I have that thought. I wish I had.
So you were in college and thinking, oh, maybe I could have gone to that other school.
Yeah, there was a state school where I wouldn't have had to pay much at all. I still had a little bit of a balance to cover, but instead of it being, it was a 5-digit number, it was closer to, a 4-digit number. So huge difference there. But at the time, it was just, I come from a multicultural background. I was the first person in my family to go to college.
That changes things.
So the thought process about my family having me here in the United States, going to school, there's a different mentality culturally in your household about what your choices are. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that's kind of changing now to really look at budgets. So I know I've talked a lot about what I did.
Yeah.
What did you do to pay for college? I know you had an interesting,
I
think polar opposite a little bit.
I would say so. My paying for college story is actually pretty interesting. So I did have a large scholarship from high school I went to. I was valedictorian. So that allowed me to have a good amount of my tuition paid. However, I learned this even as a valedictorian. The valedictorian scholarship covered everything except for out-of-state tuition. So that was the caveat. I had an awesome scholarship to where if I were an in-state student, paid for in full. But that out-of-state tuition got me. So I did have to I took out the Pell Grant. I filled out my Fafsa, and it worked out with my parents' income, so I was able to get the Pell Grant, which was good because the Pell Grant plus the valedictorian scholarship, it was very beneficial, and I think I still had a few $1,000s left over for my tuition. And I'm not gonna lie, this was kind of weird, but I actually filled out I switched 2 numbers on my Social Security.
You told me this.
Yeah.
And it really screwed things up for you.
So I switched 2 numbers on my Social Security for my application for the school. So my FAFSA application wasn't matching the school's application. So I just school was starting in a week, and I didn't have the money.
And you had to be authorized to be getting the financial aid.
Yeah.
And that'll place the hold on your account, and sometimes you can't clear it up in time. Right?
Exactly. So I had the valedictorian scholarship, but I didn't have the Pell Grant. So I basically had to take out a loan, not knowing that the problem was the application. Mm-hmm. It was the way that they identified me. And yeah, I ended up taking out a loan my first semester in college. And then I also got some bad advice about what to do with that loan. I was told, hey, loans are good, leave it, pay it off later. It's good for your credit and all of that stuff. And now the space that we work in, I know I would never. I would pay it off as soon as I could. So fortunately, throughout college, I was able to get some more scholarships, and that allowed me to get to the point where like my tuition was paid in full, but I still had the loan because somebody told me to hold on to it.
Don't worry about it. It's just a federal student loan.
Yes, exactly. Just let it sit and
it'll be fine. You'll deal with it when you leave.
Exactly. That's what happened to me, and I look back on it now and I go, oh my goodness, interest. Because you get the subsidized or the unsubsidized, and you're over here thinking, oh, I don't have anything to worry about. It's like that loan is building interest while you sit there and be all comfortable.
Well, it's just the unsubsidized one.
Well, yeah, just the unsubsidized.
Disclaimer.
Yes, but I had both, and I think in my mind at the time I probably read the way that one of them worked and said, oh, I don't have to worry about interest. I'll be fine. And I just bad advice all the way what I received. So I just let the loan sit, and then I ended up, having to pay for it after I graduated because I didn't use my surplus from the scholarships I had to pay for it.
Pay it off quickly.
Yeah, and I wish I had a budget, because if I were really just on top of what I was doing while I was a student, oh my goodness, I wouldn't have spent so much money eating out with friends and all of that. I probably would have
having fun.
Or yeah, like I would.
But it's not fun later.
Yeah, it's not.
It actually does affect you once you graduate.
Yes.
If you graduate with any student loan debt at all, and you kind of use that money for stuff that maybe you didn't need, I know I may have fallen into that trap a little bit as well, because I had to pay for a meal plan, especially my freshman year.
Oh yeah, the meal plans.
You're required to pay for it, but I was like, but it's more fun to go to a restaurant off campus.
Yep.
With your friends and a big group of people. And honestly, looking back, I wish I went to that cafeteria all the time and took full advantage of it, because I remember I just let meals go.
Yeah.
Because you get so many meals. I think I had so many for the term, and I never got close to that number.
Yeah, it's so funny, because I think about when I was in college, and so many of my friends who lived on campus, there were different meal plans that they could purchase. And yeah, I know a lot of people who some people had unlimited meals.
And they're still going out to eat.
And
paying with their own cash. Or we had a card that you could put money on, or families could put money on. And I remember we used to I used to have basically family give me that as a gift.
Yeah.
Some money to put on my student card. And I would still go out and use that. I could have saved that and used that for books later or anything else. And to me, I'm like, well, I can use this at some of the local restaurants, so
yeah,
charge it.
They know how to get you.
They do,
because I know the school I went to, we specifically had our student ID card would allow us to get discounts, and it would allow us to get like coupons and all types of things for local restaurants. So there's all types of incentives for you not eating at the cafeteria or whatever the dining dining hall is for that. I'm getting confused saying it because I didn't have a meal plan. I didn't live on campus.
You didn't live on campus.
No. If you're looking to apply for scholarships, remember, scholarship points is exactly what you need. You earn points through offers or bonus codes, and then you use these points to enter into scholarships. We give away 3 separate $1,000 scholarships every month, and one $10,000 scholarship every 3 months. So that's every quarter. All right. You get plenty of chances to win. Enter monthly into the $1,000 scholarships. Enter every quarter into the $10,000 scholarship that everyone loves. And specifically for this episode, we got something special for you. Another bonus code. So use the bonus code PAY4COLLEGE for 100 points to get you started. That's Pay for College. PAY, the number 4, college. And we'll see you on scholarshippoints.com.
So tell me more about your decision to go out of state, because you were kind of the same question, but a little bit different, where you had the opportunity to kind of go to school for free.
Yeah.
And you actually chose to leave the state and go to a school that you wouldn't be considered in-state for.
Yeah. So I considering that I did have the valedictorian scholarship, if I did stay where I was in Mississippi at the time, I could have gotten a full ride to some of the universities there. But I kind of knew that I was coming to Las Vegas because I had family out here. And I literally, I only completed one application when I was doing my college apps. And
really?
I did one application, and that was for UNLV, and that was it. Like, I started one for a college in Mississippi, but I just didn't finish it because I knew I wasn't going, regardless.
And you knew where you wanted to be.
Yeah, and I knew I could, and I kind of knew that based on my ACT scores and everything, I was like, I'm getting in.
You're getting in.
Yeah,
but did you have any clue about the type of money they'd offer you or financial aid, or were you just kind of like, I'll figure it out when I get there?
Well, no, I was like, I'm going. Pretty much. I said I'm going. My family, my family out here, they were like, oh yeah, you can stay with us. We'll figure it out and everything, and we'll help you get through. So I was like, oh, however much it costs, I'll have some kind of assistance. And then when got into it, it was like, well, I hope you have scholarships and everything. I'm like, well, I'm glad I did, but I kind of went in with this false understanding of how it would actually be, which is why it's important to talk to your parents or talk to whatever family member is saying that they're going to help you out with it. Because not saying I didn't get help, but I remember when
do you think it's just because of your age you kind of don't have a grasp of how much things cost?
I think,
or like how much life really is in some ways.
Yeah, I think you really start to pick up on the cost of things when you have to start paying for it.
Yeah, or you start getting the warnings of like, if you don't figure this out, you're not going to school.
Right. Yeah, I think if once you have to start paying for things, I think it becomes more real. Because when you have, like, when your parents have paid for stuff your whole life, they're paying, they're working, they're putting food on the table and all that, and then when those roles reverse, you start going, oh, how much do I make a month?
Have you seen? I think it's like just a video on social media I saw of like somebody like using daily toiletries and different things in their house when they live with their parents versus when they live on their own. And with their parents, they're pouring like whole glasses of orange juice and like squeezing the whole toothpaste out every time they brush their teeth. And then they switch to like when you start living on your own, and it's like a little dab of toothpaste just to get some on there. Yeah. And then like the orange juice, they like just are holding like a dropper into their cup.
That's funny.
I was like, that is so true. Because I think one of the big things about this conversation about paying for school is, there are costs beyond tuition. And just getting there. There's costs beyond just paying for college and having some money aside to pay for life. Yes. Life doesn't stop.
No.
Life is expensive.
Yeah, and it's expensive whether you're in college or not.
Yeah, you have to spend money generally almost every single day in some way or another. It may not be necessarily like you're actually using money every day, but if you're having a cell phone, you pay that once a month, but that's for the whole month.
Exactly.
So every day that's a cost.
Yeah.
I know you're really big into budgeting your life now.
Yes, but I wasn't when I was in college. But if I could go back, I would do so many things differently. Like we talked about it a little bit earlier, just the eating out with friends and having maybe so much fast food. It's like things that I do now, things that you kind of learn as you go after college and you start working. You learn simple things like pack a lunch.
Pack a lunch.
Pack a lunch.
Because you come to work to make money.
Not spend it. Not spend it. That, but it's little things like that. I wish that, I had packed the lunch every day, because I kid you not, especially when I had my little scholarship and was getting a refund check and all that, I felt like I was the man. I did. I felt like I was the man. I said, semester started, okay, got an extra, $2,000 to play with, and just eating out like I'm on the Food Network or something like that. Just it was
expanding your palate, young.
it's seriously. I look back on it, I'm going, oh, Tré, what did you? Boy, you...
I mean, I guess it's part of the living and learning.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I really try to caution people, because if you don't really set constraints around yourself, the younger you are, the better. If you can get into those habits of understanding how much a dollar really is worth in your life and how many dollars you have. And everyone's situations could be different. So I think it's kind of best to kind of set constraints and get an idea of what you should be spending. I mean, there's a lot of great apps, a lot of great tools just through banking apps now that let you create buckets to spend. I feel like back in the day, we used to do more of the cash method of you just put some cash in your wallet, and when more places took cash, I mean, we're getting a little away from cash now. Right. Dating myself.
Yeah.
But we used to do methods to try to keep constraints on ourselves, because sometimes it is easy when you have friends in college, because you're with a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds,
different socioeconomic statuses.
Yes.
Like,
and they're going out and spending all this money, and you kind of want to tag along and be part of that group and have fun. You can get lost in it, especially if you don't have a grasp on what you're spending.
Yes.
And then you live like you're living like this life, and then you graduate, and then you have to start paying for other expenses like rent, unless you have the option to move back home with family or anything.
Absolutely.
And then also trying to get a job, and people don't also understand sometimes having a job can be expensive. Like, how do you get to your job? Do you have to drive there? Do you need a car? Do you need gas? Do you need transit?
Yep.
Some of that can be really pricey, and if you kind of spend all your money and it could be really a struggle.
I agree. Like, I've got it. You were talking about how I can get into the weeds with the spending. I drive a car that's pretty good on gas. I think right now I'm averaging about 37 miles to the gallon. And I calculated, I said, it actually cost me 9 cents to go a mile. And I did the calculation.
Did you put insurance in that?
Huh?
Because I think you're off a little, especially in this area.
well, I did the calculation, and so I'm about 9 cents per mile. And then it dawned on me, because when you get into this, you can go crazy. You can start, and I'm for it, by the way, but you can start saying, okay, this grocery store has better prices. But then once I figured out how much I spend per mile, I said, oh, but
you have to drive.
It might be 50 cents cheaper at that store, but if I've got to go an extra
5 miles,
6 miles, I just lost 54 cents. So it's like, it's not worth it, but it can get intense.
I do know, honestly, I thought I was pretty good at budgeting, and then I met my match, because for those of you that don't know, Tré is a fantastic budget person. I didn't know you could do certain things, but I guess I haven't been looking at it granular. But I think there's a little bit of a difference between us.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been working a little bit longer than you have. So I think there's a little bit of a difference there, just because of, what I've kind of established and got used to.
Absolutely.
But I feel like you are a little bit of how I was. Well, you're a lot more than I was, because I remember I used to have spreadsheets that broke down everything. Like, how much is my daily cost of living? Maybe not as granular as you go today with your electric bills, but to be honest with you, I don't think all the electric bills I've ever had in my life you could look up online.
Oh my goodness. That's funny.
I think I got some of the actual paper. So you had to kind of estimate, but you are really good at budgeting and understanding how to set constraints on yourself. And you're when you set your mind to it, there's no convincing you.
I mean, you got
to do anything outside of it, which I think it's like a pretty interesting, strong quality in you.
Yeah, I mean, let's connect that to college students, right? So if you're a college student and maybe you have an on-campus job, or you work at a retail store and you make few $100 a month, like you want that budget in place, because that budget will let you know, okay, this is how much I'm bringing in every month. This is how much it costs for me to live. Like that's how I look at the budget. Your expenses, that's how much it costs for you to exist.
Yes, have a roof over your head, have the food you need,
Exactly.
and have the daily things you need for basic hygiene and also keeping your space clean.
Right.
Like some of those small things. And that, like, after that, it's, you know, kind of going to, you can always go on the luxury end of everything.
Yes, you can.
And you can always do the luxury end of ways to eat, even. Like, people are saying, well, you know, you definitely want to budget for food, and we've talked about food a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, especially as a college student, there's different levels and luxury levels of food. There's your meal plan. If you're required to pay for it, I would say take full advantage of it.
Leverage that until the
as
cows
much
come
as
home.
you can. And every once in a while, it's okay if it's a birthday or something to maybe go out and celebrate a little bit.
Absolutely.
But also keeps your mind on that too, because you could do something like a slightly, maybe not a high-end restaurant, but a nice restaurant where you have servers and menus and you can choose a lot of different options. But then there's a high-end fine dining where maybe you hold off on that type of thing.
Exactly.
It's like understanding the different levels of luxury and what you can really afford as a college student.
Nah, I agree. I'll get practical with it. So when I was a student worker, I worked for a department on campus, and I think I was making, you know, it was part-time work, so 20 hours a week max. All right, $10 an hour. So after taxes, you know, I'm somewhere in the probably $600 or $700 is what I'm making. So that's one thing. But, well, I didn't live close to campus, so I had to commute. I was driving about 30 to 40 minutes to and from campus every day, depending on the traffic, what time I left, all of that good stuff. So I'll tell you just straight up, as a college student, the majority of what I made was going to gas. But I would have, I don't know because I wasn't doing the numbers, but I'm pretty sure there were several months where when the majority of my money should have been going to gas, it was probably going towards fast food. All right.
And then you're trying to figure out how to get your car to get you to where you need to go. And, you know, honestly, that's the anxiety that comes with running out of money, right? Mm-hmm. I know I had a lot of sleepless nights of kind of that bill was due, kind of figuring out who's going to pay for it, how are we going to do this, will the loan go through? And honestly, I kept so much of this to myself, thinking no one else is having this problem. And honestly, a lot of people are having this problem. Yeah. It probably took until we graduated. Even my close friends who we talked about everything, and I mean absolutely everything, we never talked about fear of money. We just kind of try to hold it in and we'd figure it out internally. And then afterwards, you know, now we're like, look at my student loan debt. Look at my student. What are we going to do? Like now we're living like college students when we graduated.
Oh, wow.
Because now we're like, well, how many roommates do we need to have? Living in a house. I don't want to go back home. What are we going to do? It's like that whole mentality of, you know, other people are going through it too. So if you set at least parameters around yourself, I honestly feel like if you're like that researched on yourself, it's an easier conversation to have.
It really is.
If you're just kind of concerned that other people are not going to like you or be friends with you just because maybe you're not willing to spend $50, $60 a day and going out and having fun. But you can say, well, look, this is my budget. Mm-hmm. I only spend $60 a month. That's it. So like I got it. Like I'll pick some stuff and then we'll hang out on campus and do stuff together in other ways, but it's not going to be every night. You're
absolutely right about that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure that for me as a college student, I was I had several moments where I wanted to go eat out with people because they were going to this restaurant close to campus, and not even that, just like, oh, we're going to go to this fast food place, and just you go and do all of that stuff because it's fun just hanging with people. But, you know, how many of those people, because, you know, after college, you move on. How many of those people are still my friends today? Mm-hmm. It's like I hung out with tons of people in college. I probably got, from individuals I was friends with in college on one hand, you know, individuals that I keep up with to this day and who also keep up with me. So to your point, if you're doing it to impress them or make them like you, it's not worth it. It's really not.
It's not worth it. And also at the same time, I almost feel like, because honestly, I think you learn less throughout time. So this is just like one of, like, I think us living through it.
Yeah.
You kind of learn the people that are supposed to stick by you and be with you will be with you no matter what.
And they'll respect your budget.
And they'll respect your budget. And honestly, the more research you are, you get a sense of confidence about yourself. Mm-hmm. It took me until after college to be like, look, like, this is my salary. This is what I take home. This is my rent. So when people want to do things, they're like, that's great. Really wish I could go with you. It's not going to work this week.
Exactly.
So, I get paid in a few weeks. All my bills came out of this paycheck. Maybe next time I can join you guys. But, this time, based on my budget, it's kind of taken up for the month.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk about it later.
Thank you for tuning in to part 1 of Paying for College. Make sure you come back for part 2 of Paying for College, where we'll have some more tips and tricks and just things that you want to know.
Yeah. Learn about some experiences, what to think of now, so you don't have to suffer later.